Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, as you all know that the US and Iran rivalry is now at peak and its pivot is there in Middle East. Illegitimate state of Israel and its occupation forces, whatever they are doing, the genocidal war not only in Palestine, in Gaza or in West Bank or in Lebanon or in Syria. This is all because of the chaos created by the illegitimate state of Israel, its occupation forces, in assistance with the United States. And this is exactly what Israel wants in Gulf right now against Iran. Israel tried its level best from the last many decades to drag United States into the conflict with Iran. Not succeeded much in Biden administration, but now during the Trump administration, it's inevitable. And we have seen over the years, and particularly in last 2 weeks, that how the things are building up. United States geared up its defenses there in Indian Ocean, particularly with the B-2 Spirit bombers there at the Diego Garcia Island and in Indian Ocean as well as near Yemen, the 2 strike carriers, USS Carl Vinson and USS Harry Truman. They are approximately 5,000 kilometers away from Iran, and US has given threat to Iran that either come to the negotiating table to have direct talks on its nuclear program, roll it back, or ready for bombing. Iran is also gearing up its defenses and also the diplomatic efforts to tone down this escalation. China and Russia has a pivotal role now because China just hosted a nuclear talk with Iran in Beijing. Also, the exercises near Chabahar. Then this comes Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia is a huge player in the region. Iran contacted Saudi Arabia for de-escalation. Oman is also gearing up for any sort of indirect negotiations between Iran and United States. But on the other hand, Iran is not ready to accept the dominance of the United States. Don't believe in the Trump administration because the same administration pulled out from joint comprehensive plan of action that was agreed upon between the permanent 5 plus Germany in 2015. But in 2018, Trump administration pulled out of this agreement, and as a consequence, now there is the tensions between the two. Another aspect is that JCPOA is going to be ended in October this year. Also, lots of provisions of the United Nations Security Councils at which some of the sanctions were already lifted from Iran. Those might be again pushed. But United States is sanctioning Iran. The fresh sanctions are just a couple of days back. On the other hand, the regional players like Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, they are trying hard not to escalate. Situation is dire, temperature is high, and the tensions are actually growing. Now the question is whether there would be the deal between the United States and Iran can pursue or could pursue the peaceful nuclear program or would be ready to roll it back as a whole. Or there would be a conflict, a hot pursuit, a war, which is not in favor of the region, not in favor of the world, because world is already going through a serious turmoil. To discuss this very serious situation emerging right at the neighborhood of Pakistan, we have in our studios Rear Admiral retired Faisal Shah. He is International Affairs Analyst. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for your presence. And Dr. Tauqeer Hussain Sargana, he is the Assistant Professor of International Relations at the International Relations Department at International Islamic University, Islamabad. Thank you very much, sir, for your presence. And online joining us, Dr. Saira Abbasi. She is Mid-Eastern Affairs expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Saira, for being with us online. My first question to you, and very professional one, as it's your area, that US-Israel joint venture, 6 B-2 bombers carrying tons of guided bomb units 57 or MOB 57, what we call, the most destructive weapon after the nuclear bomb. Now in the Indian Ocean at the Diego Garcia Island. Carrier strike groups are there near Yemen, and they are striking inside Yemen as well. They are just 5,000 kilometers away when B2 has the 11,000 kilometers of range. Patriot batteries are there at the Diego Garcia, then second THAAD air defense system already installed there in Israel. And now US President again repeated that attack on Iran is absolutely possible and Israel will lead that. Iran couldn't be allowed to have nuclear weapons. Your thoughts, sir?
Thank you very much for having me here. You're right that this is amassing of arsenal by US in the region and near the region. It is basically strategic messaging that US is carrying out with Iran, not only with Iran, but the region as a whole. If you remember President Trump, when he wrote letter to the Iranian leadership, he gave a time frame of 2 months that the negotiations should be concluded within 2 months as per his desire.
Definitely.
Which is actually a dictation.
Yes.
And Iranians refused it. So he is trying to build up pressure on Iranian leadership that I mean what I said. And this is amassing of whatever I have, whatever Israel has. And if negotiations fail within 2 months time frame, I might resort to what I said. But the point is that if you are ready to negotiate with your opponent, I mean, this is not the way of dealing with a nation state, that you want them to agree to whatever you want, and
Very
you
right.
don't accommodate their demands and their necessities. Now, this is a flashpoint, and Iranians have refused this dominance. They have refused this pressure, and they say, okay, we are ready to talk to you, but at par. We are not going to be subjugated by you. We are not going to be dominated by you. We are not going to accept all your demands. So I personally feel that this is a good sign that both are meeting, because it's after a very long time Iran and US are coming face to face and talking to each other and agreed to
Definitely
talk to each
there
other.
must have to be a peaceful negotiation between the two countries to normalize the situation.
Yes, but they will have to come to a middle ground where the demands of both sides are addressed. This is what Israel actually is afraid of.
Definitely. Israel don't want it really.
Yes, they fear that Mr. Trump would come down to his initial demands and he would finally conclude an agreement with Iran which will address Iranian demands also and pose it as a diplomatic victory on his part, and this is what Israel does not want. So you are right, situation is tricky, but ultimately when the talks move ahead, there will be signs that we'll be seeing that both are compromising on initial positions, going back, finding a middle ground, and hopefully, because the consequences of failure are uncontrollable and unpredictable.
No doubt, no doubt. Your point well taken. Dr. Tauqeer, US President, as rightly pointed out by Admiral Sab, first written a letter to the Iranian leadership that was rejected, and that was because it was kind of a dictation, almost 5 to 6 points, which were not entirely, Iran is not ready to accept it really, and even in this way. So even no to direct talks. So then US President threatened Iran to first unilaterally roll back its nuclear program and even the missile program and end the uranium enrichment, categorize Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as the terrorist entity, dismantle the Popular Mobilization Force, the PMF, or Quwwat al-Hasht al-Shabi, and as Israel considers it a grave direct threat to its existence from Iraq particularly, and the support to the Palestinians, including the support to Hamas and Hezbollah, and stop supporting Houthis in Yemen as well. Otherwise, Iran must ready to face all-out attack. So how do you see that, what sort of situation is right now emerging between the United States and Iran?
Thank you very much, Faisal. The situation right now is not only vulnerable, but geopolitically speaking, very tricky to the context where United States of America, with all its credentials and diplomatic, privilege, could end up the situation in a kind of turmoil that the regional competitors with Iran, the great powers, the European nations, and altogether the United States of America would not be able to handle at the end of the day. So the very important aspect of the letter that Trump wrote to the Iranian authorities does have a very positive significance vested in its spirit. But the kind of language and the kind of questioning that letter posed to Iranian authorities, it was inevitable, not only by Iranian authorities, any authorities in the world. A sovereign nation would never, extend their positive cooperation towards any kind of negotiations or dealings, the kind of content the letter has. With all this, contemporary outlook, we have to understand what is the matter at the core. It's a distrust between both nations. When I say nations, it means United States of America and Iran. If we go back into the history, we have 1953 CIA coup against the then democratic elected Mohammad Mossadegh regime. And then we have seen in the aftermath of 1979 Islamic Revolution, when a stalemate continued for 444 days, when the youngsters and the youth in Iran took over control of the Abbasi, and they made American diplomats hostage. And we have seen distrust and mistrust during the Iran-Iraq war. And we have seen how in the region, United States of America has always tilted towards the illegal and discriminatory political military approach of Israel, which always isolates Iran's defense and strategic interests in the region as a sovereign nation, because they are also entitled to secure their own territorial existence vis-a-vis Israel, as they also claim. And the killing of Qasem Soleimani. So all these, and even in 2019, the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, were banned by the United States of America as a foreign terrorist organization. So all these developments have always put Iran into a very close circle, where coming forward and ending a bit to kind of negotiations where United States of America can be seen as a, realistically, as a...
But as Admiral Sahab rightly pointed out, that might be there would be some sort of a rapprochement between the United States and Iran, but unfortunately Israel don't want it, because Israel want to wipe out its nuclear program and want a guarantee that nuclear Iran must not be there, if even it's the peaceful nuclear program. But your point well taken. Dr. Saira, after the fall of Syria, then the huge damage to Hamas and Hezbollah, and series of attacks against Houthis in Yemen, the situation is very volatile. And now when Israel is continuously pushing United States to attack Iran, and the US is building up in the Indian Ocean, what would be the options left with Iran? Do you think that would it go nuclear militarily, as Iranian leadership threatened that it could acquire nuclear weapons if attacked?
Thank you very much, Mr. Faisal, for having me at your show. We have to analyze it into the context of Iran's strategic options, which are shaped by both internal and external calculations and constraints. We have to see that most recently, like you have mentioned in your question, the fall of Syria. The Syria is weakened, the Hezbollah and Hamas, they are under the pressure, and the Houthis, they are facing sustained attacks by the United States of America. So Iran's regional influence is already on the very, shaking terms, which has a kind of weakening the Iranian axis of resistance and its lobbying, which is at the regional level. So in such a volatile environment, Iran may perceive the acquisition of nuclear weapons not as an aggressive step, but as a necessary deterrent thing to ensure the survival of the state as well as the regime. So for that matter, I think the Iranian leadership would try to, and they have on multiple occasions they have said that or hinted that any direct military attack could shift their nuclear calculus from restraint towards the weaponization. However, going nuclear is not cost-free for the Iranians also. While it might provide the deterrent ability to the Iranians, but it would also kind of strike triggering severe international isolation in terms of economic collapse under the intensified economic sanctions which the Trump administration and many other international actors have hinted already in the wake of any Iranian behavior. So ultimately, the decision to cross the nuclear threshold would depend on the credibility of the threat, Iran's assessment of the US resolve that what they are going to take, and the viability of its current deterrence frameworks. So international community is very much, you can say, is concerned about the Iranian ability. The recent statements of the President Trump have also hinted that he said that we have a very little time. So he also seemed to be in a very urgent position. And this has a context to it. And what is that the period needed
Your
to
point well
produce
taken. Your point well taken, Dr. Saira. International community is very concerned. Dr. Tauqeer, as Dr. Saira is very rightly saying about the international community. International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, just this February reported that Iran has enriched at least 60% of the uranium, and Tehran is now few technical steps away from 90%, attaining 90% of the weapon grade level. So meanwhile, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that JCPOA or Iran nuclear deal that was done in 2015 and still existing, that is going to expire on 18th of October 2025, along with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2231, that ensures actually lots of sanctions which were already lifted because of as a result of this agreement. So if Iran don't implement it, because still Iran has the time to implement it, and achieve uranium enrichment to 90% of the weapon grade level, all sanctions with the snapback mechanism could be triggered. But the United States, as it was already pulled out of the JCPOA in 2018, so US has no moral credibility on that particular front to slap sanctions on Iran, but rest of the member countries have. So do you think that other member countries, in pursuit of that, or under the pressure of Israel or the United States, they are going to sanction Iran after October, or initially make Iran to be at the negotiating table?
Very important question, keeping in view the very strategic point of reference when it comes to Iran's regional and global image in the world. Nuclear program of Iran has been the bone of contention. When
yes,
it comes
this
to
is
Middle East,
basically the pin. That is the pivot right
point.
now. Yes,
because Israel's perspective about its existence is more or less connected with that nuclear progress of Iran, because they believe if Iran will become a nuclear power state, it would be an inevitable consequence. It will brought an inevitable consequence for the existence of Israel. Not only Israel, but there are so few other Middle Eastern competitors. They also rightly point out toward this security architecture that in presence of Iran's nuclear weapons, their security would also be undermined. So that's a legitimate discussion or point of reference when it comes to Iran's nuclear ambitions. Also, Iran's nuclear ambitions are altogether a dent to the global non-proliferation regime as well, because Iran is a member of NPT.
Yes.
And as member of NPT,
non-proliferation
member, so non-proliferation treaty. So as member of NPT, Iran's commitment is not to develop nuclear weapons. And time and over again, it has been accused that clandestinely Iran has been pursuing nuclear weapons program. So one of the recent reports that we have referred, that International Atomic Energy Agency in February has pointed out that Iran is having 60% nuclear enrichment, which is leading Iran towards the breakout point. Which
although you know the JCPOA was strict in that.
Exactly.
That said that 90% of the enriched uranium must have to be curtailed.
Exactly.
And it has given only
3.67.
3 point something.
Yeah,
So
3.67,
that was really alarming for the international world when Iran is the signatory of NPT and pursuing that
So if we
enrichment.
consider International Atomic Energy Agency report credible, and of course that's a credible institution, so
Yes,
we
it
have
is.
to put positive insight on that. So it means Iran has already been in breach of JCPOA commitment. But on the other hand, the international community and the United States of American perspective on JCPOA is at the divergence, because in 2018
Because the problems lies in Washington
in
as
Washington
well, no
DC,
doubt
because
about
they
that.
came out
Yes.
of the JCPOA and they imposed their unilateral sanctions on Iran. So this complicates the situation.
But just to
yeah.
take it as a scenario, Admiral Faisal, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian just having a statement and reiterated that non-peaceful use of the nuclear energy has absolutely no place in their society and defense doctrine as well. And again offered that Iranian nuclear activities to be fully subjected to verification, and said that Iran is ready to engage and hold dialogue to reduce tensions based on the mutual interest and respect. This is no doubt about that. But have no hesitation in defending its sovereignty means Iran don't want escalation, but the dialogue. Then why the United States is an urgency, and why they don't believe, why won't complete surrender of Iran, same on the lines of Ukraine and Libya as it was done respectively in 1993 and 2003. Now Iran wants dialogues, but dialogues with respect and dignity, number one. And the second is, Iran is ready to have inspections. Why IAEA not intervene into that? Why they are the silent spectators?
To understand that, I think we need to go back to year 2013. When these negotiations for JCPOA started, and Iranian intention has been clear since then that they don't want to have nuclear weapons. Their nuclear program is purely for peaceful purposes.
If they agree on beyond just 3.5% of the uranium enrichment,
Yes.
so it means that it's already rolled back.
Yes. So it was brought down to 3.67%, which is enough for use in agriculture, medicine, and energy.
Obviously, for peaceful purposes.
Yes, and Iran, when the JCPOA is signed, adhered to the requirements of JCPOA for a couple of years till 2018. It was abandoned unilaterally by Mr. Trump. IAEA inspectors were regularly in Iran. They were verifying, they were giving access to the declared sites, and they were verifying that Iran was not enriching more than the decided value. So when JCPOA was abandoned in 2018 by US President Trump, what were the circumstances that led him to do it? He had two arguments. Number one, he said it was not comprehensive. Number two, it was not permanent, because JCPOA was for 15 years, and the snapback
for 10 years.
section was
JCPOA is for 10 years. Yeah.
for 10 years. So that is expiring in October this year. But JCPOA is going to last for another 5 years. So this
Definitely, it has the clause for that.
So this was temporary in his perspective. And secondly, the nuclear weapon delivery means were not included in the JCPOA, means missile program. Now, Iran has a very impressive missile inventory, which ranges from 500 kilometers to 2,500 kilometers, which certainly brings Israel into its very effective kinetic range. So that missile program has to be included in that, and that has also to be abandoned. Now, if you see a country is deprived of its missile program and it is also surrounded by threats, is it going to agree to be a defenseless country? What happened to Libya?
Very valid point, no doubt.
What happened to Libya in 2003 when it did
Yes.
this? So Iran is not that weak as US or Israel perhaps have considered, or they might have their calculations done, and they also know that Israel
Might be they have some miscalculation.
Might
So Iran has the capability to defend itself, no doubt about that. Dr. Saira, how do you see as a regional player Saudi Arabia's role in minimizing tensions between Iran and the United States on nuclear issue particularly, and have sort of renewed negotiations on the issue. As Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian had talks with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, considering the kingdom more closer ties with the United States, and especially Crown Prince with the President Donald Trump, while UAE and Oman are also key players in this matter. So how do you see the role of the Muslim countries, particularly regional players like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar and Oman in de-escalation of these tensions going on between Iran and the United States?
See, if anything would happen to Iran, that would have a spillover effect towards all of the region, particularly in the Gulf region. So, of course, the regional players, they have to play the key role, and I think they are more concerned about it. As we can see, the Saudi Arabia's evolving role as a regional mediator, particularly under the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. So it also reflects the shift in his the shift in the broader strategy of the Riyadh. From in the past we have seen that there was more confrontation. Now they are now it is shifting towards more pragmatism. And the recent dialogue that you have mentioned in your question, that also shows the willingness of the regional actors to prevent any escalation at the regional level. Why? Because of course that would not only jeopardize the security of Iran, but it will also jeopardize the Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 economic transformation that of course would be having the troubles and problems. Like I said that in the past, historically, Saudi Arabia was more aligned with the U.S. interest and the U.S. position, which was more hardliner as compared to in the present day circumstances, which are changed altogether. So and the other dynamics that we have to see is
important that U.S. President Donald Trump is going to visit Saudi Arabia. That is going to be the first visit of his to the kingdom. And also there are unconfirmed reports. They are unconfirmed because there are lots of reports coming on claiming that there are back channel diplomacy working between Tehran and Washington have agreed to begin indirect negotiations within next 3 weeks in Oman through some mediators in Gulf, while some other reports suggest that Iran reached out to Oman for a third-party mediation with the United States to have some kind of negotiations on the nuclear issue. What's the reality right now when Trump is also going to visit Kingdom? So how do you see overall scenario when the US president would be in the region?
I would say that this is a very good time where Saudi Arabia could leverage its closer ties with the Washington, in which he could, of course, work together with the United States of America and Iran to find the peace and do the diplomacy. Because these actors, like you have mentioned, whether it's UAE, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Oman, these are the actors that create a regional diplomatic architecture or platform that could, encourage dialogue and cooperation among the states. And most importantly, the trust building, because there is a lot of trust deficit between the United States of America and Iranian. So the recent developments you have mentioned that, of course, it indicates that there is back channel diplomacy going on between Iran and United States, backed by or mediated by Oman. So Iranian officials also have acknowledged these talks, and they emphasize indirect nature of talks with the United States, while on the other hand, the US is more inclined towards having the direct talks with them. So, but the good thing is that the dialogue should be there, because diplomacy is also the answer to the questions. The war and confrontation is never the answer to the questions.
Right, absolutely right, because dialogue must have to be there, either the direct or indirect, but that must have to be there. Admiral Faisal, what's the significance of the trilateral China, Iran, Russia joint naval exercises near the Iranian port of Chabahar, codenamed Security Belt 2025, and then a trilateral meeting between the same players there in Beijing, hosted by China, in presence of Russia on Tehran's nuclear program. So a joint statement that was issued on March 15th, 2025, Beijing talks signaled actually togetherness with Iran, number one. stressed on the diplomatic solution to the nuclear issue. They condemned any sort of escalation and negated, and even condemned the unlawful unilateral actions against Iran. Whether Russia and China are willing to lower tensions, number one, and the second is whether they stand with Iran in case of any sort of escalation or any sort of misadventure on Iran.
First of all, as far as naval exercise is concerned, this is a regular feature that happens every year between the three countries, and it's a collaborative
But you know, when the tensions of such level
Yes,
yes. And if the regular thing is going on, that also
it's also
become
messaging.
really
Yes,
important.
it's also
really.
a messaging.
Yes.
But it basically is aimed at developing interoperability between
Yes.
the three naval forces. Whenever there is a time, they have to work jointly or in collaboration, so there should be some interoperability, understanding of culture and language and everything, so that they may operate effectively.
Definitely.
As far as intentions of China and Russia are concerned, you are right. They are there for lowering the temperature. And if you remember, in JCPOA also, Russia and China were there, and they played a
very
pivotal
important role. Yes.
If you remember, in January, Iran and Russia had strategic agreement between each other. Although it does not guarantee security to Iran, but it has some very important clauses which also have carried out messaging throughout the world. Like, if somebody attacks any of them, that attacker will not be supported by the both parties. So that means Russia will abstain from any action in Iran, and it will condemn it. Russia has also offered to mediate between US and Iran.
Right now, Russia is in a very lucrative position because of the Donald Trump's tilt towards Moscow.
And we have seen Chinese influence in Gulf also. You see, rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia was done by China.
But there are lots of theories about Russia and China right now. What I want to get it from Dr. Tauqeer. But the fact is, Dr. Tauqeer, that in December 2026, China and Russia were the proponents of a UN Security Council resolution 1737, which imposed UN sanctions on Iran for the first time, and that decision actually shocked Iran at that time. That's the one pivot, which is the fact, historical fact that happened. And the second is that many experts believe that China has to secure its energy supplies from the Gulf. That's why Beijing wants to have calm in the region, and Iran-Saudi Arabia peace deal, which was very important at that time, really, you know, it's again turned the tide of the history, basically with the same objective. China also intends to settle its disputes with the United States, and the fresh one is the trade tariff war. That's why using Iran as a leverage. On the other hand, the Russia, which is rich with the hydrocarbons and in strategic competition to sell its own resources to the rest of the world, using Iran as a leverage to secure a deal with the United States to end sanctions and have different strategic pacts for its own sake, where Iran stands in all this. And it is a kind of equation which actually the international relations tells us, the theories, the realism, basically. So how do you see that?
Yeah, well, Faisal, this is a kind of geopolitical equation for Iran.
Yes.
Iran's political posturing within the region has always invested on its own domestic politics, because Iran's capability to exercise its leverage in beyond the region has always been a volatile, because beyond the region, two important great powers, the Russian Federation and China are the important actors. But we have seen, and you have rightly pointed out, that both countries' interaction with Iran has been seen as a leverage of bargaining, rather than sustaining or substantiating Iranian political security or military.
Because when it comes to
Russia,
Russia, after the fall of Assad
Yeah.
regime in Syria, some sort of leverage actually that Iran has through Syria on Russia, that is diminished and to some extent. But Admiral Saab is very right, because there is a strategic agreement between Iran and Russia as well. So do you think that it's going to happen something regarding the peace deal between Iran and United States with the guarantors, right? I'm not considering it China, but might be the Russia.
I believe when it comes to renegotiating the GCPOA, where when United States of America came out of the treaty,
Trump administration is going to be agreed on that,
because Trump's apprehension was they need a better deal.
Okay.
That rightly pointed out by Admiral Saab, that in that deal they want to include delivery means as well. So if China and Russia come together and create a kind of political environment where Iran opens up this aspect for the negotiations, I believe the maximum pressure tactics of the United States of America would be served, and the peace in the region could be arranged.
Your point well taken. Your point well taken. Dr. Saira, do you not think that Iran is also preparing its defenses and carrying out different exercises, strategic maneuvers, and preparing it to figure out at least 10 US strategic bases, the military installations, even the strike carriers and illegitimate state of Israel to target in case of any possible US eventuality? Also warned neighboring countries not to cooperate with the United States, otherwise it would be treated as an act of aggression. Do you not think that the conflict would escalate, as you have rightly pointed out earlier as well? In case of any US attack, a Gulf region could be destabilized, and that is not in favor of anyone across the world when Middle East is already burning due to the Israeli genocidal invasions.
Well, of course, like I already have mentioned in the previous question of yours, that in the mounting threats from the international community, and particularly from the United States of America, any such effort which could, kind of posing threat to the Iranian, of course, also have to find out their own options, and they are working on that. And most important is to establish their deterrence in the face of the mounting threats, as I have mentioned. Why? Because this is very much aligned with the Iran's posture of, its long-standing posture of forward defense, which emphasize retaliation, not just within its borders, but across a network of allies and proxies in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. So the objective is, of course, to raise the cost of the war or the cost of the threat for the United States of America. Any outright attack on Iran by the US or its allies would, of course, certainly lead to a wider regional escalation, which would not only destabilize the regional peace, but that would have an international effect also. For instance, the energy security that would be greatly impacted with the potential disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. We all know that it is very, very critical choke point in the Gulf region. So
definitely, we have already witnessed in Red Sea, and if that happens in Gulf, no doubt that Strait of Hormuz is a strategic location, and if that is going to be choked, entire world is going to be affected. Admiral Faisal, what's your opinion on Iranian naval capabilities? As experts believe that there are small submarines, like midget submarines, and Zulfikar cruise missiles through containerized ships. These are some sort of unconventional type of, in not that sense in strategic unconventional, but some kind of makeshift arrangements Iran has, could be used to target the Diego Garcia Island. The US naval vessel or the strike carriers can block the Strait of Hormuz, as Saira is pointing out, Bab al-Mandab Strait as well, and along with that, the Yemeni Houthis can do a lot really. Iran could significantly damage the world trade, and if would be there, it would be a disaster at the hands of the United States after the trade tariff war.
I think it's not only their naval capabilities, but it's their geography that provides them this leverage.
Yes.
It's Iran's geography is one of the best in Persian Gulf, with Strait of Hormuz right under its nose. 40% of world energy passes through a Strait of Hormuz. So it can be disrupted in matter of minutes. Then you, as you also mentioned that US bases are in close proximity of Iran. If complete annihilation or destruction cannot be done, obviously some damage, substantial damage can be done over there also. Then Iran has two navies, one Artish Navy, which is a regular navy, which has frigates, destroyers, submarines, small boats. Then it has IRGC Navy, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, which is asymmetric in nature, and they have recently revealed an undersea, underground city which has many speedboats with rockets and rockets fitted on them, and then drones. There are news that they have a catamaran boat which has 2 cruise missiles each, and with 110 knots speed of that catamaran boat, which is almost impossible to stop it. And then they have lately demonstrated a suicide drone which can be launched from an undersea platform, and it has a jet propulsion
Kamikaze
system,
drones and all others.
Kamikaze drone. Then they have converted one merchant ship, Shahid Bagheri, into a drone carrier with 850 meters long deck for launching and retrieving drones. So, I mean, they are substantially poised in Persian Gulf, and that is the trump card that Iran has, that if anything happens anywhere in Iran, if in the shape of any attack, aerial or ground, it has its strength lying in Persian Gulf, which is going to affect not only the region, but the whole world.
No doubt about that. Your point well taken, and very alarming situation really. One question, that is, Dr. Tauqeer, briefly if you answer it, that first that US triggered sanctions on 6 entities and 2 individuals in Iran, United Arab Emirates and China, whom it accused of responsible for the procurement of unmanned aerial vehicles, a component on behalf of the leading manufacturers for Iran's drone program. President Donald Trump also seeks to ramp up pressure on Tehran, and that would affect the Iranian defense capabilities. On the other hand, do you think that Israel already is successful in convincing United States to attack Iran in one way or another? And Iran, right now, Washington also successful in creating a smokescreen for Israel to create chaos in entire West Asia, in Middle East region, seized over 16,000 square kilometers of the Syrian lands, the Golan Heights, it's beyond Golan Heights, and only 60 kilometers away from Damascus. Then intend to capture and seize Gaza Strip and annex West Bank. They are doing in Lebanon as well. Intend to repeat the same in Arab territories to realize the dark dream of the greater Israel. So how do you see this overall scenario?
Yeah, there are 2 aspects of your question I will be briefly explaining, as you have said. The entities that United States of America has banned, that includes procurement of UAVs, equipment for the Iranian drone capabilities, definitely this is going to slow down the Iranian capability. But I cannot see that Iranian capability would be totally undermined. I don't believe so, because there are indigenous components they have all been able to.
They have,
so they
no
would
doubt.
be able to reciprocate.
And in detail, Admiral Faisal has already
Exactly,
elaborated.
Exactly. So somehow that would have some pressure, but they would be able to manage it. And drones are part of Iranian's asymmetric warfare.
What about Israel? Because we have run short of time. So if
I don't think so that Israel is fully capable in terms of influencing United States strategic decision making to attack Iran, but now they have some influence in the decision making process of United States of America. So I don't think so the strategic calculus of United States of America would be totally in the hands of Israel. So they would not play. There are some greater geopolitical and geostrategic calculations that United States of America would be keeping in view, because they have their own interests in the region, they have their allies in the region, so they would not be putting and pushing their allies on the sake of Israel in a kind of greater.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Tauqeer, for being with us in the studios. Thank you very much, Admiral Faisal, for your presence here. And thank you very much, Dr. Saira, for being with us online and very candid and elaborative views. Viewers, you have just listened to our panel. US is continuously pressurizing Iran, and Israel is continuously using its leverage on United States to pressurize Iran. But right now, Iran refused its United States and Israel's dominance, and that is what a sovereign country has to do. But the situation is that Iran wants negotiations with the United States, but not the direct one. United States wanted direct one, but indirect negotiations might start in Oman soon. And we hope that there must have to be the dialogue, talks or negotiations between United States and Iran on Iranian nuclear program, because Iran intend to pursue its peaceful uses of the nuclear program, and no country is going to be curtailed from that. But United States wanted complete rollback. The distrust is there, and to increase the confidence between the two countries, it's important that the regional countries, China and Russia, must have to play their role. There must have to be some sort of a scenario that the joint comprehensive plan of action might be renegotiated between Iran and rest of the countries. That is going to be a ray of hope. And when it comes to the apprehensions of the United States, that European Union has to play a role in that. Russia has to play, because Russia has the leverage. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Oman can play a big role in the region to de-escalate what the tensions are there. Any direct attack on Iran, it's going to be a volatile situation in the region, because Iran is not less capable, because Iran has already prepared some of the 10 military bases or the strategic infrastructure of the United States in Gulf countries. Even if Iran use its some orthodox defense capabilities from the naval side, they can attack Diego Garcia as well. And they have the leverage, and they have the missiles available to attack Israel as well. That's why the two THAAD systems are already installed there as well. So it means that, but the spillover effect of this Gulf tensions between Iran and United States is still there, and that is the biggest threat, because 40% of the energy and oil is going through this Strait of Hormuz, at which Iran has a critical eye. And for that matter, Pakistan and the third world countries are also going to be worstly affected because of this. Pakistan has a very fragile and growing economy right now, and we can't afford any sort of a conflict right at our neighborhood. So this is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.